GM, welcome everyone to another episode of Make It Rain, Week 18 edition. I am joined once again by JJ and Jake without Theric this week. Unfortunately, he had something come up, but we will have a nice guest host, Mr. Al Smizzle, here towards the end of the show. Gentlemen, how are you doing this morning?
Doing well. Would be doing better if I didn't tax Lost Harvest on my Rainmakers before the New Year's, because I play a Mike Evans stack every freaking week, and of course that is the one. But someone in here did play a Tom Brady Mike Evans stack, so let's turn to them to see how that went.
Mr. Jake, how'd it go for you?
Yeah. Pretty good week, I'd say. Didn't ship any tournaments, but we got up there pretty high. Yeah, man, I can't complain. The Brady Evans finally hit. It's been a long season of them not really doing too much, right? Evans has not been himself this season. Hasn't really had any big pop-off games like he has tended to have, but then, this week 17, he decides to do it. So, yeah, I can pull up my lineup here real quick.
Yeah, it'd be great.
Over on the legendary side, I ended up finishing fourth here. And all these top teams, they all had the same stack here with Brady, Evans, and then I had the run back here with DJ Moore on the other side, and that was a great start to the early games. And then my decision making process was basically, all right, who do I go? Who do I go for these late games, right? And I knew for sure I wanted Eckler because that was my superstar I had in legendary, and he was a stud, so that was a lock for me. And then this was the deciding factor here. This fifth spot, the flex spot. Who do I go here? For me, it was like three options between the cards I had. It was Garrett Wilson, it was Christian Watson in a really good matchup against the Vikings, and then also the running back Aaron Jones on that side as well against the Vikings. Decided to go with Garrett Wilson because I really liked his production that he's had this year with Mike White. And he had 11 targets that game, so I can't even really complain about the play. I don't feel bad about it. It just didn't really work out. Unfortunately, he only had 3 catches for 18 yards in those 11 targets. The guy who actually won it went Aaron Jones. Same exact lineup as me, but went Aaron Jones instead. I actually would have had lower cereals than him too if I would have duped this. So feels a little bad, but what are you going to do?
Mm-hmm.
Can't always run too hot there. So.
Yeah, I was going to ask if you considered Aaron Jones, just considering the workload that both of the Green Bay running backs were getting, and against the Vikings, of course. But no, I can't be mad at your decision. You probably were up against Evans Godwin at some point, right? And I think Godwin had 25. So
I think that's what Bales were in here in the third spot. Mm-hmm. He had the Evans Godwin stack. DJ Moore actually scored a little bit more than Godwin. He had 1.5 more, so I had a slight advantage in that going into the late slate.
Yeah, but it's like we say every week, right? You got to put yourself in position, and then gotta get lucky from there. So, nice little hit there. That's always a good one to write home and start the new year with.
All right, Jake. Well, thanks for sharing that awesome lineup. Best of luck to everyone moving into Week 18 here. We are joined now by a very special guest, Mr. Al Smizzle, DFS legend, who has been making a name for himself as well in these Rainmaker streets throughout the course of this season. Al, thank you so much for joining us this morning. How's everything going, man?
Things are great. Glad that you guys asked me to come on. I'm pleased to be here. I always like talking about Rainmakers. It's just hard to find people who want to talk about Rainmakers. So anytime I can sit there and have a conversation about it, I'm more than willing.
Thank you very much, sir.
I love it.
Yeah, and for those watching the show who have tuned in earlier, we always shout out Al because I think a lot of us learned from his Discord and his group, the Smizzle Gang. So learned a lot of our philosophies and strategies from Al here. So really honored to have a sharp on our show like him and talk about Rainmakers.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Of course, yeah. Shout out Smizzle Gang. Very well said, JJ. Thank you very much. Always such a abundance of resources coming from both your YouTube channels and community itself. So thank you very much, Al. We'd like to start off the segment just by having some open forum banter, just touching on kind of a state of the union of Rainmakers, especially here at the end of the year. Maybe a little reflection on the season as it's rolled along here, and some of the stuff DraftKings has rolled out as it pertains to Rainmakers. On a personal level, do you think their current model is sustainable, Al? And how do you feel about the overall sustainability of Rainmakers here moving forward?
So when you say the current model, that's kind of a wide and vague, it's a very broad brush that you're using. So I don't want to get super granular about everything,
Sure.
but can you narrow that down for me a little bit? Just in terms of what? Just the packs or the games that they have or the payouts or the different tiers?
I would say maybe even overall marketability, right? The visibility of the product itself, the growth aspect of it here moving forward. I think attracting new users as the course of the season went along, maybe flatline there a bit as the season rolled along. So, is the growth aspect of the game intact, do you think?
So I started playing daily fantasy in 2012, which everything started around when? 2009, 2010 was when everything started. I started playing before DraftKings was even a site. So back then, you basically would just play, and if you had any clue about what you were doing, you won money. It was basically that simple. And so I made a comment much earlier in the season on Twitter that Rainmakers to me feels like the way daily fantasy felt back in 2012 and 2013, where if you had any idea of what you were doing, you were going to make money. And there were some people, it's the internet, so there's always people that want to be the red team and, try to find that one little thread to tug on a sweater to think that they can pull apart the entire, it's not actually like that. And it was like that. It was exactly like that. If you had any idea what you were doing from a roster building perspective, if you had any idea of putting together a plan on how to build your collection, you were going to have a profitable season. So since that came to fruition, I went to New Orleans for the live final a couple of weeks ago, week 15. And there were a bunch of people who were people I've been around for the last 10 years in daily fantasy. Some of them play Rainmakers, John Bales from Lucky Trader and Cal Spears of Roto Grinders and all them, heavy into Rainmakers and at the Rainmakers tier as well. And then there were other people like Big T and Notorious and other people who said, I didn't really understand it at the beginning and it might be too late for me to get in because the cards are, there's less utility in the cards, which is true. So that's why you kind of saw the community not grow through the middle of the season because there were less opportunities for people to jump in and get any sort of long-term plus EV situation on their investment, even though they could have still won something. They just had less weeks to express it. 20 weeks is greater than 10. So I think that people regret to some degree not getting involved. I think that some people who got involved, there's some issues with the sustainability of the product based on a couple of things. One, the way the taxes are generated for it. Two, the way that the payouts are per tier. In my opinion, Elite should not be the highest paying tier. It shouldn't have the highest first place. It shouldn't have the largest GPP. If you're asking people to pay for Rainmakers packs, Rainmakers cards, legendary packs, legendary cards, if the three top divisions currently, what is it, $475,000 allocated to the top three tiers in terms of the largest, the Fiat Frenzy at every tier.
Yeah.
I think it's got to be somewhere closer to 500, 600,000 in payout, with the current legendary payout being the elite payout next year, 100,000 GPP, 10K to first. And then split the rest between legendary and Rainmakers. Because if you're asking people to use the cards as entry fees, which is essentially what you're doing when you buy singles or buy packs, you have to allocate for how much more money the entry fee is at Rainmakers, with 3 legendary cards and 2 Rainmaker tiers cards, where the good ones are going to cost you 10,000 to 20,000 a piece. And legendary cards are roughly 1,000 to 4,000 a piece, depending on the quality of the player and card and superstar, non-superstar, whatever. The payouts at those tiers need to be worked out better. I love the fact that they had flat payouts. So if you came in 5th, you weren't it wasn't first place is 100K, second place is 10K, third place is a set of steak knives, and fourth place is you're fired. So like I like the fact that they were flatter payouts, especially in Rainmaker's tier, specifically on showdowns, definitely in the alpha, same with legendary tier, where if you just play every week, you have a winning expectation if you have a solidly allocated collection and build your lineups through some sort of correlation. I hope that wasn't too long or big of an answer.
No, that was perfect. That was perfect. I agree with everything you said there. And something we kind of, I think all of us identified early was Elite was probably the best bang for the buck in terms of, prize equity compared to the entries, right? And like you said, as long as you curate your collection in a way, your lineups, even if you're not really great at building them, even though you'll have better edge if you're building good lineups, like you just kind of mash them all together and you have some semblance of an expected value going into those tournaments, right? Just because the payouts were so high for the Elite, and $75 for the min cash for your lineups, and if you have 20 or more of them going in every week, that's a good payout week to week. But yeah, totally agree. I think it's kind of bonkers that Elite has over half of that prize pool for both the fiat for the legendary and the Rainmaker tier. I guess it does encourage more multi-entry, but you can argue that if the top tiers had that as well, then that would encourage more multi-entry.
If you incentivize, if you want to sell those $5 packs, which is essentially where the entry fees are coming from, right? So like, there's a 10% charge on the marketplace, but 5% of that goes to the NFLPA. And if you do the math, if you were to like look up how much it costs for Madden to get the names and rights to the players and their pictures and everything, there you can find out that every player got paid X amount of dollars, figure out how many players are active in the NFLPA for each season. And it worked out to something like, from the 2020 year, worked out to something like 35 million. Now, prices don't go down on those things. So if DraftKings is paying a floor of $35 million, that is out from the beginning of the day. Then they're paying out prize pool money. And all of that collection has to come from the 5% that they get from secondary sales and the amount of packs that they sell. I think that they came up short. I think Rainmakers was a massive overlay this season for DraftKings and therefore for the players who played smartly. And it was a highly profitable endeavor if you really jumped into the pool at Elite or higher tiers. However, it was tougher to express a profit at Rainmaker and Legendary because, like, I won the Legendary tournament like twice this year and I got 10K twice. That really honestly needs to be like a 250K tournament with like 40K to first and flatter payouts.
Right. And I'm totally on board with flatter payouts. Might be biased because I had the tie for second place in the Elite contest.
On cereals too, right?
On cereals, yeah. So little biased there, but yeah, 80K difference on just cereal numbers, which I should have had better ones, but yeah, that was kind of a bad beat there. But hey, happy, and like you said, it was a profitable endeavor. I would even argue it was harder to express in the rare and the core tier as well, just because of the massive printing they had at those. I mean, going forward into the future season, like we've talked about it on this show, like we kind of don't even want to invest too heavily in the rare and the core tier just because, all these special side sets they just printed at that tier. Right. And so
there's less limited. So like the Rainmaker tier, they have 8 and then 50. And then what is Elite, the max? The
it's like 150
or 150, something like that. I don't know exactly. But they are limited run cards where rare and core, they left themselves that window to just print as many as possible. But that also allows people to come in.
Exactly.
I do wonder if next year they're going to have more of the special collaborative sets that come out because they did so very well on those with the sweater and the flannel cards that came out in the holiday set, the Pixel Vault set that came out, the Dead Fellas, the whatever other sets that they had. So like I could see them doing more of those one-off, must have 3 to 5 of this particular set, and the only way to get them is to pull them out of packs. So like I could see them doing that a lot more at the core and rare tiers. But it makes it great for people who want to dip their toe in the game without making a large financial jump in. Like, so I had people in my community who wanted to talk about Rainmakers the last 2-3 weeks. And I'm like, well, it's my lowest viewed video of the week, every week. And I've just kind of stopped doing it the last couple weeks season because there's no new people coming in. And I view it, Rainmakers, like you said, if you put in smart lineups, if you just play the optimal every week, you'll make money. right? And so to build an optimal-ish lineup with one superstar was something like 50 to $75 most weeks of the year, right? And now it's like 20, in week 16 and 17. So if you wanted to dip your toe, and I was suggesting build an optimal lineup and only around playoff players, so you at least get 1 or 2 extra weeks of play out of that lineup spend that you're going to make, people could easily jump in and dip their toe in the game because core was so heavily printed due to these side sets that they printed. So I think there just needs to be less prize money at core, less prize money at rare. And I'm not saying that to be in my ivory tower and elitist or anything, but if you're gonna incentivize people to move up the tiers and you want it to be funsies a little bit, where you give away prizes and tickets and this and that at core, with some money, like a $50,000 core Fiat Frenzy, go for it. And you can dip your toe and learn how to play, and the cards will be cheap, and it's a great entry point. And if people really like it, they can decide to invest more.
Yeah, those side contests have been super profitable for DraftKings. Yes. If you see like how much money they're making off of PAXs versus how much prize pool there is, like they're pulling in like 200-300% ROI on those things. But people love them because they love being able to open packs, and you can also use those cards for the rest of the season, right? So it makes sense that they continue to do that, and I agree. I think they'll do more of them next year. One thing I wanted to bring up is I think there's this hard balance that Rainmakers has versus like normal DFS in terms of like even for content or just word of mouth advertising, like it's very negative EV for like us to like tell people, hey, you should get into Rainmakers, because there's a fixed prize pool and you want less people competing for that prize pool, right? Whereas in DFS, they'll just increase the prize pool if they need to,
next week,
based on the amount of people. We don't know if they're going, like they could obviously do that for Rainmakers too, but we don't know if they're going to do that. So things like making content, like what we're doing, like we mainly just do it because for fun, like what you said, like it's just fun to be able to talk Rainmakers with other people. But it's also like pretty negative EV to be able to, try and get other people getting into this game. So I think it's going to be a difficult thing for Rainmakers to tackle. Maybe the solution is just they'll increase the prize pool more as more people get in. But I'm curious to hear your guys' thoughts around that issue.
I like to think of it like I agree, negative EV probably in the short term, but if we want this product to succeed and if we want to be able to play it and have bigger prize pools, obviously it'll have to have new players and these people coming in and have show some sustainability to their shareholders or to their leads there. So I think while it's probably negative EV in the short term to like share strategies and that stuff, I think it's good for the growth of it, and we'll benefit through a different way, which I think is kind of cool, which is the franchise score, right? And we get weekly payouts. Like I definitely underestimated how much that paid out at the start of the season, right? I was like, I'm just going to do my one lineup. And then as I went, going on week to week to week, I realized, wow, this is like a continuous payout. And like, if I keep buying cards, I'll get the weekly drive and, just kind of like flywheeled into itself. Right. And I think that really increased the ROI. And when you're bringing in these new players and, trying to kind of advertising word of mouth, a lot of these guys will definitely stimulate, market activity, and they'll be also selling into the different weeks as well. So I think it's just beneficial to have more players in the ecosystem, right? Same thing with NFTs. Like of course, in our alpha groups, we share all this information and stuff, but we kind of expect down the long road we'll get that equity in return, whether it be through connections or whatnot. So that's how I feel about it. Sorry, that was long-winded.
No, all very good points there. One thing, we've seen DraftKings roll out, especially more recently, some updates touching on some of their future utility with the cards, things to look forward to into next season. Al, how do you feel about some of the announcements that they've made recently? How do you feel about some of the breadcrumbs they've dropped about utility for 2022 cards into next season? And I know a big topic of conversation has also been, players being a little disgruntled about having to mostly start with new cards into next season. How do you feel like DraftKings has handled that? It's probably a little bit of a delicate balance as well, but any improvements you can see from DraftKings side there?
Again, that's a few things to unpack. So like, based on what they've told us for the utility of 2022 cards in 2023. So let's start there, right? We always knew that there was going to be some sort of burn mechanism in the offseason. They're going to have some pretty solid franchise score numbers after the season's over to try and disincentivize people from liquidating and crashing the market. However, it was a smart idea to liquidate at the cheapest price possible for tax purposes before the end of 2022. But that was a whole other, like I said, the tax issue is a totally different issue. But it needs to be handled better from both DraftKings point of view and from a transparency and communication point of view with guidance. But I also would like more transparency on just tell us what the thing is so that we can make decisions appropriately. So if I know what the burn mechanism is, and I don't know what the burn mechanism is, but let's say everything that I do is from Ultimate Team, because I played Ultimate Team from like day one, FIFA Ultimate Team. Then I started playing Madden Ultimate Team day one and Hockey Ultimate Team. Like I love those sorts of games. So one of my mods says, you've been preparing for Rainmakers your entire life. It's not really shocking that you had a really good season in Rainmakers. So, because those were games that I loved. And that ties into the second part of your question as well, but I'll get there in a second. In FIFA and in hockey and in everything else, they have these things called SBCs, squad building challenges, where you build in soccer an 11-man roster with certain rules in place. Usually cards have ratings. You don't have that in Ultimate Team, in Rainmakers. You just have tiers. So if you build a full team of 11 that has this, like over an 82 rating, you can get a pack of 2 cards that have whatever. They'll define it differently as the year goes on. But you get a 2-player pack for 11 cards. You just turn them in at kind of discard level. That's essentially what the burn mechanism is, in my opinion, moving forward, however they shape it. Now, whether you get a 2-player card pack for 5 legendary cards, you get 2 legendary cards, whether it's 8 cards, whether it's a lineup where you got to turn in a quarterback, running back, wide receiver, / and a flex. However they shape that, that's kind of how I'm viewing the thing. Whether it's a 1-card pack, a 2-card pack, whether you have to turn in a full roster, right? Just give me the rules of what they are. And then that will also stimulate market activity through your dead period where people will say, okay, I need a full roster, and that's going to get me a 2-player card pack at that tier with the roster build rules. If I want a legendary 2-card pack, I got to build a full roster based on legendary entry rules. If I want elite packs, I got to build them around the elite rules, building a full roster. If it's based around the 5-man roster, just tell us what the thing is so that we can use the depressed prices in the offseason to build our collection so we can have as many 2-player packs as we want based on the burn mechanism for next season, which will also increase rarity for the paid contests or the prized contests that they're going to have for 2023. So if you can make that decision, it is better EV for me to buy cards to burn, which creates deflationary economics for the cards for 2023. Just give us the rules already so we stop with the vagary. And part of the vagary to me is that they don't really know yet. And they're just kind of deciding as they go. And so they can't tell us. It's not that we're going to roll it out slowly until we know what we're going to do. I don't think they know fully what they're going to do with the burn mechanism. They're still figuring it out.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I don't think they know yet either. I was honestly surprised that they even gave us like the vague, kind of descriptions of, hey, 10% of the new supply is going to be for burn people and all those. I was surprised that they gave us that information this early. I figured that wouldn't be till the off season.
We got it though. That's nice, at least.
Yeah,
I want it to be. Just tell me what I'm gonna have to burn.
I'm a bit worried that it's like they have a lot of time, like they have months before they actually need to give us that information. So I hope they don't wait those months. Hopefully they can get that result pretty quickly. But I'm in agreement. I think they probably have a lot of people from a lot of different directions giving them up like suggestions. Hey, you could do this better, this better, this better. And they haven't fully figured out exactly what they want to do for these cards yet. But hopefully it's something that's number one priority for them soon. So we can make those decisions on the marketplace, because I'm right there with you. Like I want to start like firing away, preparing my portfolio for next year for this burn, but I don't really know how exactly the best way to do that yet.
No matter what level you play, if you play Rainmakers, I don't care what tier, rare, elite, legendary core. I don't care what level you play at. You're a hardcore player. It's a game for hardcore players. It really is. Like, you are more invested and more in tune with what's going on a week-to-week basis. You're curating a collection. You're playing into like bye weeks, future down the road. You're paying attention to who's going to be on showdown slates. You're just a more hardcore daily fantasy player if you're playing Rainmakers, right?
Yeah.
And you enjoy that because you look for that sort of a game. So if fantasy football is dead from February through August 1, for the most part, outside of best ball, right? And people who play best ball are the hardcore players as well of fantasy football. Imagine the market activity that you could stimulate through February to the end of July, when the only thing in town is baseball, a little bit of playoff basketball, whatever else. People would be buying their cards to set up their collection for that, let's say, August 1 release date on the burn mechanism. People would still be looking for deals in your marketplace throughout the offseason, where right now we can't do anything. There's no guidance. There's no transparency. So, like, why am I going to buy something when I don't know what I'm supposed to buy?
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. And the way I've kind of been treating it for myself is like kind of trying to find these lower serial ones for players that I think will be valuable going into the next season for those 2022 exclusive contests, right? Like your Kyler Murray's right now. If you see a low serial one at like rarely, I think it's a good buy just at these prices. Just things like that, right? I think those are kind of the only plays you can really make outside of just speculating on what the burn will be, right? Because if it's burn, 3 of these players for one of that future player, suddenly my Jalen Tolberts that I'm stacking aren't so useful anymore, right? for the burn. And so, it'll really help if they clarify that. And like you said, it's a game for hardcore players. We definitely feel that when we're doing our late swaps starting at 3:00 every week. But there's some features that we'd like to see going forward. And to their credit, they've made some improvements to their UI already in that aspect.
There were some quality of life improvements, like the enter again or submit and enter again. Like, that was huge.
God, yes! I don't have 100
it's
tabs.
Such a small thing, but like I have way less carpal tunnel right now than I did at the beginning of the season as a result.
Now we just need an easier way to swap, man. That's my biggest request.
Yes,
fair,
yes.
yeah, like a just a blank card, a holder card.
Yeah,
if you want to move a player from one lineup to another.
Yeah, I actually like how they have it now, though, because just in terms of having dead players in your lineup, because it gives those dead players value, right? Your injured Trey Lance, has been kind of a pumpkin for the whole season. Still holds like $30 at Elite, higher at Legendary, of course, every week, just because in the 4:00 games, that's a dead card that you can use to late swap at the quarterback position, which is there's not a lot of the quarterbacks you can use. So kind of like those. And, going forward, I do hope that they implement some sort of late swap feature that's better. But it's been good so far with their improvements. At least I can filter by game now.
See, I want an in-season burn mechanism. Like, I want the same sort of SBC ultimate team burn mechanism for the cards in seasons. Because like once Zach Ertz goes down, and I had like 2 or 3 Zach Ertz that I pulled out of packs, there's no use for them. And I pulled a Kyle Trask in August. It's been sitting around. Like, maybe it has some usage this week because he might start. But like, I was sitting on a card for 20 weeks. Just like, I could have burned it and maybe turned it into a 2-player pack in the middle of the season. And it's a legendary level too. So it's got some sort of resale value or reusable value if there's a burn function. But sticking with the ultimate team thing, Poop, you mentioned is your, may I call you Poop?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Figure I'm
it would be my honor.
Like I said, I come from an Ultimate Team background, and people who play Ultimate Team know that when FIFA or Madden comes out next year, you need to rebuild an entire collection of cards starting from 0. And that's the way that it is. Now, so to me, I was not shocked that the cards were not going to be able to 2022 cards would not be playable in 2023 contests. However, some people have been clutching their pearls all season long. And the question becomes, well, I want to use I've already spent all this money on these cards. Yeah, but you knew they were going to expire.
Yeah.
Right? And where do you think the prize pool money comes from?
Exactly.
The prize pool fairy?
The prize pool fairy.
It's something we've been saying every week, and I know that you've been talking about, right? especially with cards that you don't use. You always were saying, at least at the start of the season and kind of midway through, is like, if you're not using them, you should sell them, just because there's always that chance of injury, and if they get injured, your card turns into
massive
a
injury risk.
Donut, right? And
I bought a Jimmy Garoppolo the week before he got hurt, because I was like trying to reshift my collection into playoffs, right? So like I was selling off cards that were on teams that weren't going to make the playoffs, and I was trying to reallocate into my correlated stacks, because I build around quarterback, wide receiver stacks mostly. So I had a couple of, I have an Ayuk and I had a Debo, and I have a bunch of players on San Francisco, and I was like, okay, I need to get a Garoppolo. He's going to be starting the playoffs, and then he's dead.
Yeah.
So that was $1,000 elite card that went down the chute that I can't burn into next year. But like the fact, if you're holding cards and they're not either active in a lineup or they're not active on the marketplace, you are losing. The opportunity cost is too high.
Right. And
Yeah,
it's like this. Sorry, go ahead, Jake.
I was just going to say, I think the in-game burn is a really good idea. Something we thought about that with too, and I think it's a good way for them to generate more revenue as well if they can print more of these backups who don't have cards, like Brock Purdy. Like, we don't have a card for that. If you could burn some of these guys, in the middle of the week, and then they drop packs of newly minted like backup players who are now starting on different teams. It's a good way for them to just generate, value out of these cards, and then also secondary revenue from these newly minted guys as well. Like, I think that's something they could definitely improve on, is getting more, being more quick to respond to these injuries of these guys who get elevated into valuable fantasy spots.
Yeah, I mean, there was that showdown for the Ravens, and Mark Andrews was out, and we still didn't have a likely card. Yeah, I think we still don't have a likely card, and so it's just things like that. Totally agree with, but
those are the things that they fixed, I think, or tried to fix. I apologize. Through auctions.
Yeah,
right.
And just going back to the point of players depreciating just due to opportunity costs, like we've always kind of tried to say, these contests aren't free, right? You're paying through it through your portfolio value or your player card value every week, right? So they're constantly depreciating. Of course, they can spike if they're overperforming or if an injury situation comes up, but they're not free contests. There's no fairy, as you said, that just puts money into the prize pool magically. It's coming from your card value, and so it's something that I think those players that are griping now, maybe they overlooked, or they should have had in their back of their minds, right? And it's just like Ultimate Team. Going into the season, we knew that next year, like you said, we'd have to buy new collections again. So one of those things I think that the sentiment could change around if we can just rephrase the conversation in a way like, no, these contests aren't exactly free. You're paying through your portfolio value.
There are no entry fees so long as you have the cards to enter a lineup. That is basically how Rainmakers is played. So you have to have the cards to enter the lineups. How do you get the cards? You either buy them off the marketplace or you buy packs. I have always suggested buy the singles. However, there's no singles on the marketplace if nobody opens up packs, which leads me to the point that DraftKings needs to do a better job. And I spoke to them about this at the live final. So, because they were asking a lot of questions of the Rainmakers finalists of like, what would you like to see us do next season?
That's good.
I thought the Genesis pack drop was a great idea, but not executed in the way that I feel like it should have been executed. So there's certain cards that were in that Genesis drop that I don't think should be in the Genesis drop. And I know that a lot of people agree. There should be no Auden Tate. Chris Carson was a dead card because he retired. Like, that can't be in there. If you're going to ask people, we talked about opportunity costs. That Genesis drop happens before the first preseason. I believe it was before the Hall of Fame game or around that time. So you have the entire opportunity cost of holding these players through preseason, where always people get hurt. Now, this season, less people got hurt than I can remember over the last 5 or 6 seasons. So you basically made it through dry shod. But that doesn't always happen. So as we talked about, if a player blows out his knee and he's out for the year, like remember Cam Akers last year or Dobbins last year? Like if you had a Dobbins card that you either paid at auction for a Rainmaker, probably somewhere around $5,000 to $10,000 in 2021, you would have lost that card for the whole year. If you packed them, that card went from being a high flying card on the marketplace to zero, like really fast. If you're going to ask people to hold on to these cards and assume all of that injury risk throughout preseason for packs that this year cost $2,000, you have all the best ball data because you run your own best ball tournaments at DraftKings. There should be no players under like the 170. I don't remember how many cards, how many individual players were in that first drop, in the Genesis drop, right? The skill starter set, whatever it was. That has to correlate 1-to-1 with like the top 150 or top 200 players ADP in best ball. Because you should not ever leave feeling like you got nothing usable if you're going to buy in the Genesis drop. And then you include the next drops, the Elevate or the Momentum or whatever they are as you get closer to the season. Those packs have higher variance. If you want to incentivize people to invest early and be early adopters of 2023, the payoff is those early packs, while expensive, and as expensive as the next few drops, are going to have better cards. And that makes it more likely to sell those packs out. That makes the marketplace more lively. That brings more users into the game because they feel like they can make a profit on those packs so they can flip them. So it increases marketplace activity, which makes people who want to buy singles have a bountiful marketplace to choose from for the singles they want to buy. And it helps the game all around.
It's very similar to how all these like these successful NFT projects work, right? Like they reward their earliest adopters the most. Like the Genesis drop is the most valuable drop. It makes sense. So you create an army of diehard supporters because you give them this value, and then they become promoters of your product.
And like, think about it this way. Everything to me right now is coming back to Wolf Game because I'm big into Wolf Game, I guess. So like, it took them a year to produce a game. DraftKings had a game on day one with Rainmakers, right? You didn't have to wait for like a Web3 alternative. It's like, well, we're going to put out this card or this NFT, and then you got to wait a year, and then maybe we'll come out with a game down the road, and maybe you can play to earn. Nah, you could earn a lot of money on day one in Rainmakers last year. Now you can earn with Wolf Game. It's like you said about the Genesis drop. If you had things, you got land. If you had land, you got a farmer. It's like they just gave you this stuff, and now look at the price of those things. So like, yes, you have to incentivize people, but the benefit to Rainmakers is you can literally make money the first week of the season and beyond, because the cards are your entry fee for the entire year.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And, I would like to see some more holder incentives, but they're happy overall with how this season went. Again, like the franchise score, I didn't realize how much value that was until I started really building up my collection. But going back to that, the tax implications, like kind of a gray area. And I wish they would clarify something like, are these NFTs or are they wagers and entries, right? And
I think they clarified that.
Did they? Okay.
So your winnings are going to be taxed as winnings.
Gotcha.
There are no entry fees, so there is nothing to take away from those. Your marketplace buys, your pack buys are going to be treated like a normal NFT buy. And they are filed separately from gambling winnings. So you're going to get 1099 on 100% of your winnings in Rainmakers. You're going to have to try and find something else to offset those winnings, which is why I was basically liquidating everything that I had at core and rare tier for 20 cents to $1, like undercutting the market by 50%. If a card was $5, I put mine up for $2. If somebody wants to buy it and flip it and make $2, go ahead. Just to get that loss, because the cards, if you bought a pack for like a legendary pack for $2,000, the 5 cards that come out of that pack have a expected fair market value $400 a piece. So if I sell them for 20 cents, 3 of them, I have a loss of X. So I don't just have, because the spend is not considered against your winnings. You can't say, well, I spent $500,000 and I only won $400,000 in Rainmakers. I didn't. I'm speaking hypothetically. That I had a $100,000 loss. No, that's going to be counted as a $400,000 win.
Exactly. Yeah. And so after listening to you talk about it, we were waiting for someone to get back to us, and they just didn't. And
there needs to be more transparency from DraftKings. Like, look, this is how we're handling the taxes. You got to figure it out.
Right.
But I don't think they're going to do that because they don't want to, again, NFA, right? That's the whole space. So you kind of had to talk to a tax advisor who has some knowledge of how NFTs work to be able to get there.
Yeah. And then I'm so glad they lowered the low limit to 20 cents because it was a much bigger loss. Yeah, there was like these cards I couldn't possibly sell, like Byron Pringle. That I had a friend, buy them from me, and I was like, "Yay, I'll give you 20 cents per card. Just get them off my hands so I can realize this loss."
Yeah, I spent like New Year's Eve. We were having a party on New Year's Eve at our house. And I told my wife, I need to work for like 40 minutes. She goes, "What do you mean you need to work?" I said, "I need to tax things." She goes, "Oh, okay." I spent 40 minutes listing 500 cards at 20 cents. And like 300 of them sold.
That's a pretty good pace. 500.
It was good.
Yeah.
Like I opened up 500 windows or something. It's like, next one.
Not easy to
just hit a
list,
decimal,
man.
it puts 0.20. All you had to do is hit decimal. Next window, put the thing in the window, 0.20, list. Next window, point, list. Next window, point, list. Like all the way down the road. The windows on Chrome were this big. Tabs.
Love it. Those are the little edges that we like to give out here on Make It Rain. How to do a list with thousands of tabs open at the same time. Al, I know you have a little bit of a heart out here at the top of the hour. Just wanted to open the door. JJ, Jake, did you have anything else you wanted to ask Al as we kind of close out this segment here?
Just kind of, I guess, are you looking at cards for the 2022 season, like these low serials? Because, I know you talked about it early in your show, and that's kind of why I took the route that I did at the start of the season, which was targeting showdowns with low serials, right? And I kind of realized throughout the season, obviously through one of my second places, that these lower serials have so much more value than just a floor moment or floor card, right? So I'm just wondering how you're targeting that going into the 2022 season or 2023 season for the 2022 contest, if you are targeting that, and if not, how you are valuing these lower serial cards. Is there a multiplier, or is it just kind of more of a feel thing for you?
It's definitely more of a feel thing. I'm not going to try and plan 9 months ahead. So somebody who wants to get ahead of that, if you can find the great market prices on things from people just trying to liquidate whatever they can, it's definitely going to be an edge if these players stay healthy over the next 9 months. Kyler obviously trying to come back from a knee surgery. It's going to be a fast recovery time if he was to be back by week 1 next year, but they are optimistic that he can, or whoever it is. But like the holding is the hardest part, right? It's like I have a Dalvin Cook Rainmaker Field Pass card, so I get a Dalvin Cook next year, which in theory is a great thing. However, I'm holding a running back for 9 months. That doesn't feel good at this point to actually realize the value of him being a healthy running back in preseason next season, and carrying that through to week 1. Running backs are so highly volatile that like holding these cards for 8 months to realize a value or an ascension is tough. However, there is an edge to be had there, like you said. And God, I had a thing and I can't remember what I was going to say. It was around the serial numbers. Yeah. So imagine an NFT project where the serial numbers actually matter. Well, I have number 1. Yeah. Well, what does number 1 mean? I don't know. It's number 1. That's amazing. Yeah. But like, what does it do? Nothing. There's actual utility on the serial numbers in Rainmakers. They matter.
Yeah. I won't forget. There was a contest. I think it was Cowboys versus Giants, where you specifically played down I think it was your legendary number 1 or your Rainmaker into the legendary contest. And then you ended up winning the number 1 Tyreek Hill Rainmaker card. So, there's super value in just having these lower serials. And I think it came down to a tiebreak, right? Like you had 6 as your tiebreaker and someone else had
something like that. I won the alpha.
Yeah.
I won the Rainmaker one like 2 weeks ago for $25K, and I had one lower serial number than the other guy. I beat him by 1 point. We tied, and I beat him by 1 serial.
Love it.
And as Jake would tell you, sorry, go ahead, Poop.
No, please finish up.
As Jake would tell you, there's nothing more tilting than going into a showdown and realizing, you can only win $50 or $100 or something like that.
That was the Christmas and Thanksgiving ones for me. As soon as I figured out who has the same lineup, okay, I'm 5th in this group. So like, do I want to late swap off of this lineup from one of the later players to get to a lower serial? Like it opens up that sort of strategy for you if you're the hardcore of the hardcore. But like, serial numbers matter. So build your lineups in the manner that you feel you should be building your lineups at the beginning of 2023 by using the marketplace, buying your singles, buying your stacks, figuring out your non-superstar running backs to play up with those stacks. And if you can, if it's not too pricey for you, build around the lowest cereals as possible.
Absolutely. And those are some of the little things that make Rainmakers so fun, right? So it's those little intricate strategies along the way that you can really kind of take advantage of. Al, thank you so much for coming on this Friday morning. I know you're busy and we're headed into the weekend here. Best of luck to you here as the Rainmaker season closes out. Always looking forward to all of your thoughts and insights on not just Rainmakers, but fantasy thoughts in general. So thank you very much for coming on. Look forward to having you on, hopefully in the future as we kind of progress through the life cycle of Rainmakers here into the coming years. So thank you very much, sir.
Appreciate you guys having me. I've been an MVHQ member for a long time. I've been in the Rainmakers channel, been in the Wolf Game channel. I remember being in general chat and voice chat for a while back when I was a little bit freer outside of football season. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
Yeah, thank you so much. And, always a pleasure to talk to you and learn from you. And just want to shout out your Discord, Smiz Gang HQ. And you can buy a key on OpenSea for 0.1 and best value you'll ever get in the space if you're into the fantasy scene and the Rainmaker scene. So
yeah, definitely use my link to get to that though, because
yeah, too many. I'm
gonna need to talk to you guys, figure out how to get like a check mark. There's like 2 or 3 Smiz Gang scam coins. So like go to use my link if you want to get the coin.
Awesome. Thanks a ton, Al. Really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Appreciate it.
All right, another big thank you to Mr. Al Smizzle for coming on, joining us here this morning. That was fantastic conversation. Always good to get his thoughts and insight on things, both DFS and Rainmakers related. So big shout out to Big Al there. Let's transition into our marketplace segment here. JJ, did you want to kind of lead us through and take a look at what's going on in the marketplace here?
Yeah, thanks, Poop. I'll get into this, but first I have to kind of give myself condolences for dumping a lot of these cars that are now mooning, for tax loss reasons. But I'm sure that had a lot to do with the depressed price action, right? Just a lot of people kind of unsure about the tax implications of these cars, just kind of undercutting just so that they don't get left holding this big bag and having to pay on top of their winnings, right? That would be kind of the double wrecked scenario that we were all trying to avoid going into the new year. But Happy New Year, everybody. And, let's get into the market snapshot. So as we kind of see, the general trend continues downward with a little bit of a bump at the core tier for the new year going into that Sunday slate. People kind of buying these cards that were just being dumped undervalued. And then we kind of see the trend going down again as, equity disappears week to week. A lot of these players at the top, though, kind of the one that jumps out is Geno Smith at Elite at 480. I know that for me specifically, that was the hardest card to dump, right? I had them at probably a 700 cost basis at Elite, and I had to sell them for like 100. They weren't moving, man. And I guess as this week, it's really surprising. And as this week kind of shapes out, they're a playoff contender, right? If they win, and then if Green Bay loses in that late slate, Geno Smith is definitely a card that you might want to have going into the playoffs. So that's probably the reason why his card has been coming up there. And as we can see, price is kind of down across the board, but still the top players leading the charge. So Josh Allen, can win any slate, probably will be the top quarterback most weeks in the playoffs. Justin Jefferson, kind of that pivot if you wanted to play a skill player at the superstar position. And then, Diggs, Chase, Kelsey, no surprise as they are, the non-superstars that can slide into any lineup. I'm kind of surprised that you don't see more A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith there. I'm guessing because, they're more of a 1A, 1B, right? They can kind of give a spike week than a dud. But Devontae Smith, man, he's just been super, super consistent, 100 yards for the past 5-6 weeks, and so someone I think that you want exposure to in your lineups. All right, on to the weekly gainers and losers. We see kind of the playoff situations being realized, as well as some really key matchups this week. As we kind of spoke with Al, this week sucks in terms of, the slate. Lots of under 40s for the total scores. And, the one that kind of jumps out is this Raiders Chiefs game at 52.5, highest game of the slate. Obviously not on the main slate. It's on the Saturday game. But Jarrett Stidham showing he might be the real deal, putting up a really excellent performance against the 49ers, who are an elite defense. And so you kind of see his card going up there. A bit of a risky play, though, as obviously Stidham will not make the playoffs, most likely. They have to have a lot of things go right for them to make the playoffs. But, is this $200 gain worth it? Probably not, unless you're trying to play and spike that win in that week. We see T. Higgins going up in the rare tier, as well as Lawrence and Etienne. No surprise, as they're probably two good play-up options if you're playing in the elite tier and want to play up those players. And in the weekly losers, unfortunately, Tua, Amon-Ra, and St. Brown kind of highlight those, as well as Jalen Waddle, just because it's not likely that the Dolphins are going to make the playoffs without Tua Tagovailoa. And if they do make the playoffs, it's not likely that they will make a deep run, just because I think they're on their third string quarterback when they last played. And so that obviously caps the ceiling of all those players. And Amon-Ra might be one that you might want to pick up because they do have a chance to get into the playoffs. But yeah, lots of players that are kind of having their playoff realities coming more and more true, coming to the top of these charts. And it's a good one to speculate on going into the playoffs. So thanks, Boop.
Yeah, thanks for that rundown, JJ. It's going to be a little bit of a tricky week. There's a lot of market movement all over the place, in some places that we didn't really expect either. So I think that's just kind of week 18, end of season stuff coming to fruition here. So, Jake, did you want to go ahead and pull up the totals on the week, and we can talk through some of our favorite stacks and kind of see what Vegas has given us?
All right. We got the totals on the week here. It's going to be a super interesting week, as the final week of the NFL regular season typically is, because of these playoff implications. A lot of teams, don't have much to play for, meaning a lot, these totals are going to be all over the place. It's going to be harder to find. The options, I should say, are going to be more limited in terms of, who's going to be the best stacking options on the slate. As you can see, the totals across the board are pretty low. Nothing. I mean, the Chiefs Raiders is definitely the highest one, but that's on an isolated slate on Saturday there. But the Chiefs with a lot to play for, trying to lock up that 1 seed. Then the next one is going to be the Lions Packers, which is on the main slate. Surprisingly for Rainmakers, at least. Interesting decision by DraftKings to choose to put that one on the main slate. I don't really understand that one because it deviates from what they've done all year. But we'll play with it. But this is another one where if the Seahawks win, then the Lions don't have anything to play for, and this total could come down as well. So tough spots to really pick here if you are stacking. If you wanted to go, Lions here, then it's going to be, if you wanted to stack Lions, for instance, and you waited until the last slate, then, you could be out of luck if they're not really playing for anything anymore. So personally, I'm going to go with the this is tough, man. I'm going to go with the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys want to lock up. I believe it's the 5th seed because it's a really good draw, or maybe it's the 3 seed. I don't know. All this seeding is really throwing me off. But I know they need to win the game. And so they're probably going to play their starters, and they're in a good matchup here against the Commanders. Dak's been playing really well since he's came back from injury. CD's been playing really well as well. So the Dak CD stacks, I'm loving. Really like this. I think you can bring back McLaurin. I believe he had a decent game last time they played. Not a requirement though. The Dak CD is where personally I'm going to go this week. What about you guys? Anything you're eyeing here?
These games suck. and I hate them all. But
Yeah.
I like that call with the Cowboys. Another one, Eagles. I think they will just lay on the points on the Giants. The Giants don't have anything to play for. Probably just going to play some defensive players there. Probably not controversial either. I'm sure a lot of people are eyeing this 14-point spread
Yeah.
from the Eagles, and remember what they did to the Giants the last time they played with their players starting. So can't imagine it's much different. I mean, they're playing for the number one seed. Obviously we'll have to see what the 49ers and the Cowboys will do throughout the game when they're playing. Because, they can let off the gas if the 49ers or the Cowboys are unlikely losing. But yeah, like the Eagles there. And one that I think that might be a little sneaky is the Saints, right? I think that you can get a really, really cheap Dalton stack going there, probably Rashid Shaheen, and then, see if it kind of goes off in the early slate. But otherwise, I think this. I'm not even sure Shaheen has a card.
I don't think he has a card.
I'll have to double check that. But if not, then I'll probably stack him. Yeah, yeah. If he's playing, I'm not. I can't remember if Olave's playing or not. But if not those two, then probably Juwan Johnson. But otherwise, yeah. I think this is a good slate to take a lot of shots on if you are so inclined. Cards are super super cheap for these players that don't have playoff hopes or aspirations. So like that, and then swap it to CD and Dak going into the late games.
Yeah, you guys are just front running me all over the place here, and now I'm scrambling. But no, I'll double down on that Saints Panthers game. Not the sexiest, especially, and this is going to be a 1 week scenario type of. If you're hitting the marketplace looking to play this game, right? Neither of these teams have anything to play for, but I do think it's going to be one of the few games on the slate where, because neither team has anything to play for, you might actually get a good, true competitive game environment here. As they look out to close out the season strong. I do love the Olave call. If he does play, is he on the fritz here this week? Olave?
I think he's off the injury report, but
okay.
Never sure, because there was the injury concern before the Eagles game, so never sure, especially in Week 18 if they're playing any of these guys. But obviously all of our calls come with that, not the caveat, to check if they're playing.
For sure, yeah. If Olave does go, he's sitting pretty cheap there on the marketplace, so always a threat to kind of shoot for that kind of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 1 finish on the week. So we could see if things break his way this week. And outside of that, it's a little tricky. It's a little tricky out there. But I think that Panthers Saints game presents some opportunity for a real competitive game environment. So you could run it back a couple different ways and maybe save some money along the way and try to hit it big going into the playoffs here. Good stuff, gentlemen. Is there anyone on the marketplace right now that you guys are eyeing, either playoff wise or not, for some overvalued, undervalued type of players you might be targeting? JJ, anyone there?
I mean, I feel like I beat this drum every single week, and it's kind of gross, but I think, unfortunately for Jake, I think the Packers take it this week. I hope the Lions win. But I think the Packers take it, especially after the trouncing of the Vikings last week. Oh, my God. I mean, just a little aside, I live bet that game because I kept betting the Vikings, that I finally hit it like plus 34 or something and, got a payout there. But I like the running backs there. Dylan, Aaron Jones, very, very cheap, I think, especially going this week against the Lions who allowed, 300 rushing yards to the Panthers. Can't see it going differently this game for the ground game. And again, hope it goes differently, but I like those guys especially. And Aaron Rodgers kind of had a bump in price, going to $200 from 100. But like the pass catchers, they're going into the playoffs. Never count Rodgers out of the playoffs as much as I hope that they make a first round exit or don't even make it there. I can't count them out.
Yeah, I like that call. It is sucks. I mean, the Packers do have the best odds right now. They just have to win. Unlike unlike the Lions, who need to win and also need the Rams to get upset here too. So, yeah, for me, like I said in the previous show, I'm really targeting teams who have a chance to make it to the Super Bowl, because of these prize pools that Rainmakers is offering for the playoffs, $1 million every week, right? It's going to be once it gets to the later weeks, the semifinals to the Super Bowl, those prize pools are going to be really condensed on, just a few teams. So if you have these guys from these few teams, then you have a really nice EV of coming out on top from what you spent on these players. So a guy who I'm targeting, and I'm pretty sure I've said this guy's name already, but I don't care. I'm still going to go back to it because he's still way too cheap in my opinion, and that's Kadarius Toney, wide receiver for the Kansas City Chiefs. $1.20 for core, $8 for rare, and $80 for elite right now. I think he's extremely talented. He's a guy who's getting drafted high in basketball when he was on the Giants, and now he has Patrick Mahomes thrown to him. The issue is obviously is a health thing usually with Tony, and the snaps played, but he's getting more acclimated to the system. Even though he hasn't played any full complement of snaps for the Chiefs, he's been extremely productive when he's on there, and they're running plays specifically to get Tony the ball, get the ball in space. They're giving him rushes as well. They're really getting him involved, and I only see that increasing. As time goes on, as these weeks go on as well, I only can see his snap share increasing. So I really like him as a bet for a guy on a team who is right now, I believe, number one Super Bowl favorite, in the Kansas City Chiefs, and he has Mahomes throwing to him. So I love Kadarius Toney. I just scooped a couple Kadarius Toneys last night. I might scoop even more. I don't know, just because it's ridiculous what his price is to me right now, given the upside and given how these prize payouts are going to be for Rainmakers at the Super Bowl and then the semifinal level.
I love that call. And like we've talked about in previous weeks, you'll need someone from the Chiefs. And, it could be McCole Hardman. It could be Clyde Edwards-Helaire for all we know, but someone is going to put up a spike game. Poop, what about you?
Yeah, I love the shout there. This one's going to be a little bit riskier. It's going to be contingent on some things happening this week to get Seattle in, as we touched on earlier in the show. You see some of Geno Smith's prices in the marketplace kind of come up a little bit. He's going to have to throw the ball to someone. And Seattle is not a lock to make it in. They're going to need some luck here. They do not control their own destiny in the playoff hunt here. But if they are able to squeak it out, I think DK, Metcalf, and Lockett both present some value if they are able to make it in the playoffs here. Both of them are sitting under $90 right now in elite. And if they are able to make it into the playoffs, I could see those prices coming up substantially here. So you're going to have to get a little lucky with it, understand what you're getting into, but I think it is an opportunity to get some value on the front end here. And if they don't make it in, you're just going to have to chalk it up and understand the risk involved there. But I do like making a little front-ended play there myself. We'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, I love that call. If I could throw out another one, I really like Herbert. I mean, if they can lock up this number 5 seed, they will play either the Titans or the Jaguars, which I think bodes really well for the Chargers passing offense going into next week. And so, I like them. You could play them this week. Maybe they rest their starters. Maybe they don't. But going into next week, I think whatever the matchup is will be, scoring bonanza for the Chargers. Kind of want to front run that early.
Yeah, good shout there. Great shout there. And again, with his pass, Mike Williams presents a little bit of value there too. He was mentioned quite often yesterday in our spaces with Lucky Trader as well. So big shout out there. There's some opportunity here, right? If you aren't focused on what could be a very messy Week 18, right? Looking forward ahead a week or even two into round 2 with some of these first round bye teams, there's some value to be had in the marketplace, and definitely some places we'd like to exploit here for some value.
With that said, I mean, do we even know what the playoff games will look like? Like, in terms of the Rainmaker contest, will there just be one contest per week?
I don't think we know yet. Yeah,
'Cause I know-
I'm wondering that too. I don't know. I would assume that they're probably going to do it based on like the days, maybe like a Saturday contest and a Sunday contest, something like that. Maybe like a Sunday night one too. I don't know. It's all speculation at this point. I'm not really sure. It's gonna be fun though because the games are all gonna be played at different times, right? That's usually how playoff goes, if I remember correctly. No, there's no overlaps, so it'll be really great for like late swap stuff. Very similar to how the Christmas slate was and the Thanksgiving slate was. It's going to be some very fun late swap opportunities here come playoffs.
It is that time of year. Exciting time of year.
Hell yeah.
Cozy up on the couch, order some pizzas, grab some beers, and watch some playoff football. Sounds good to me. All right, gentlemen. Well, I think that about wraps it up for this week's episode. A really, really exciting one. Again, a big shout out to Al and the Smizz gang for coming on and joining us. Lots of good stuff. Make sure you follow us on all of our socials here, linked below. And if you are looking for a place to call home in Web3, Metaverse HQ currently has a token mint going on right now. That will look to go into phase 2 here in the coming days. You can find our token also on all of your favorite marketplaces. So if you want to come in and join and talk some Rainmakers, talk some NFTs, talk some broader crypto topics, we have lots of ongoing sharp discussions in our community. We'd love to have you in there and join in the discussion. With that all being said, good luck to everyone here in week 18. Let's attack the marketplace and make it rain.